The childhood secret Leo Miller stood by the glass doors of the office building, watching Chloe Walsh and Jaden York approach. They were flanking Simon Vance, one on each side, guiding him toward the entrance. A bitter, familiar knot tightened in Leo's chest. He didn't need to be a mind reader to know that their date tonight was officially dead in the water. As the trio neared him, the two women whispered a few words to Simon before hurrying over to Leo. "Leo, I am so sorry," Chloe said, her face a mask of guilt. She reached out, grabbing his left hand and giving it a gentle, pleading tug. "Simon's not feeling well today. We need to get him to the hospital for a checkup. Please don't be mad, okay?" "The symphony starts tonight," Jaden added, naturally taking his other hand. Her voice was soft, trying to soothe the frustration she knew he was feeling. "Go ahead and get ready. We'll drop him off, make sure he's okay, and meet you there. This is the performance you've been dying to see. We promise we won't miss it." Looking at them, Leo was hit with a wave of nostalgia. Since they were toddlers, it had always been like this. Chloe on his left, Jaden on his right, holding his hands as they navigated the world together. "It's fine," Leo said, forcing a supportive smile. "You guys do what you need to do. I'll handle the arrangements, and we'll meet at the concert hall." Both women looked visibly relieved, their expressions brightening instantly. Seeing the three of them so close, Simon's face darkened for a split second. His possessiveness was a living thing, a sharp edge honed over 20 years of pining for these two women. Seeing them fawn over another man, even their lifelong friend, was a bitter pill he struggled to swallow. "Chloe, Jaden, are we going?" Simon's voice strained with a sudden, sharp pain. The irritation where the prosthetic meets the thigh. It's unbearable. It feels like thousands of fire ants are biting into my skin. "God, it hurts." His face contorted in agony as he began clawing at the base of his right thigh, his fingers digging into the skin as if trying to tear the flesh away. "Simon, stop. You'll cause an infection," Chloe cried, letting go of Leo's hand to rush to Simon's side. "We're going right now," Jaden said, her voice stern with worry. "You have to tell us the moment you feel discomfort, Simon. Don't wait until it's this bad." She, too, released Leo, jogging toward the parking garage. She pulled the car around while Chloe tenderly helped Simon into the back seat and climbed in beside him. With a brief, apologetic honk of the horn, they vanished into the city traffic. Leo, Chloe, Jaden, and Simon had been an inseparable quartet since they were in diapers. Leo had always been the golden boy, tall, athletic, with a bright spark in his eyes that drew people in. The two girls had grown from cute neighbors into stunning women, turning heads wherever they went. Simon was the outlier, handsome in a cold, distant way, a man of few words and a stubborn, obsessive streak. If he set his mind on something, he wouldn't stop until he owned it. Growing up, the dynamic was usually the same. Chloe and Jaden would walk ahead, Leo's sandwiched between them as they chatted about everything and nothing. Simon would follow behind in silence, a shadow that the others often forgot was there. Still, they took care of him. He was socially awkward and had a knack for getting into trouble, and the three of them were always there to clean up his messes. Everything shifted in high school. The girls' friendship with Leo evolved into a fierce, competitive pursuit. They weren't just interested in him. They were in a race to see who could love him more. Every morning, two identical insulated lunch bags sat on Leo's desk, filled with his favorite breakfast foods. They were his constant companions at lunch and dinner. On birthdays and holidays, the gifts and parties were lavish. At football practice, one would be there with a towel, the other with a Gatorade. When he sat down to rest, one would massage his shoulders while the other worked on his legs. The three of them were the most beautiful sight on campus, and Leo's teammates were green with envy. They joked that he lived like a king in a modern democracy. He spent half his allowance treating his friends to dinner just to apologize for the royal treatment he received. During those group dinners, the girls were social butterflies, keeping the conversation lively. They tried to include Simon, sensing that his isolation wasn't healthy, but he would just stare at his plate, eating in a stony silence that made everyone uncomfortable. Eventually, they just made sure his plate was full and let him be. It was a stable, if slightly lopsided, harmony, until Valentine's Day of their senior year. Leo was in the classroom packing his bag when two girls from another class, close friends of Chloe and Jaden, walked in. "Leo, come with us," one said. "Am I under arrest?" Leo joked. "Maybe," she laughed. "But I promise it's a good thing." Leo couldn't resist. "Wait for me. I was thinking Taco Bell tonight." "Taco Bell can wait," the girl said with a smirk. "Tonight is going to be a lot more expensive than a Crunchwrap." They led him to the town square. A crowd had gathered in a circle, and as Leo approached, they parted to let him through. In the center of the plaza, Two large hearts were laid out in flickering candles. Chloe and Jaden stood in the middle of their respective hearts, each clutching a massive bouquet of red roses. Their eyes lit up when they saw him, a mix of exhilaration and pure terror. They knew that tonight, he would likely choose one of them, and the other would be relegated to just a friend. Both girls gave heartfelt confessions, their voices trembling as they held out the flowers, waiting for his choice. Leo was paralyzed. He had always known this day would come. He loved them both, and choosing one meant breaking the other's heart. He'd spent years telling himself he was too young to decide, pushing the problem away. But looking at their hopeful, burning gazes, he realized he couldn't stall anymore. He opened his mouth to speak, but a horrific, blood-curdling scream shattered the moment. The crowd turned to see Simon Vance. He was clutching his chest, collapsing to the pavement, and rolling in apparent agony. "Call 911, Leo shouted. He forgot the flowers, the candles, and the confessions. He scooped Simon up and ran toward the campus gate. At the hospital, the doctor said it was just a panic attack brought on by extreme stress. Simon was fine, but the Valentine's Day confession was ruined. From that day on, Simon changed. He became clingy. Before, he preferred to be alone with his music or games. Now, he was the one initiating contact, constantly calling the girls for help with minor problems. Leo felt Simon distancing himself, catching glares of resentment in the rare moments their eyes met. Leo, being easygoing, brushed it off. Simon was his oldest friend. Surely he wasn't becoming an enemy. It had to be a misunderstanding. Chloe and Jaden noticed it too. Simon was suddenly on, trying to be outgoing and funny, but his jokes were awkward and his timing was off. They played along, not wanting to discourage his progress, but the bond with Leo remained unbreakable. One text from Leo, "You coming?" was all it took. Yes. Where, they would reply. That unspoken synchronicity drove Simon mad. Watching them leave to meet Leo, he would grind his teeth until his jaw ached. One day, he thought, "I will be the first choice." One afternoon, the four of them were studying in the university library. Leo caught the scent of smoke. He looked up to see a bookshelf engulfed in flames. Panic erupted. Being students with no emergency experience, most people just screamed and ran. Leo's first thought was of Chloe and Jaden. They had gone to the second floor to find a specific reference book. The library was a tinderbox. The fire spread with terrifying speed through the stacks of old paper. Leo ignored the smoke stinging his lungs and sprinted toward the stairs. Near the landing, he found them. Chloe had been knocked down by the surging crowd and had a badly sprained ankle. Jaden was frantically trying to pull her up, but she didn't have the strength, and she was frozen in a state of pure panic. Leo didn't hesitate. He hoisted Chloe over one shoulder and Jaden over the other, his muscles straining as he battled his way toward the exit. Just as the doors came into view, someone slammed into him with the force of a freight train. Leo went down hard, the weight of the two women pinning him to the floor. He tried to stand, but a sharp, white-hot pain flared in his leg. He couldn't get up. "Hey, please." Leo grabbed the jacket of a passing student. "Take them. Get them out of here." "You look hurt worse than they do, man," the student said, reaching for Leo's arm. "Don't worry about me. Save them first. Go." The student hesitated, then grabbed the two girls and pulled them toward the light of the exit. Leo struggled to crawl, his vision blurring. He was so close to the door. Suddenly, a heavy beam groaned above him. Something massive slammed into the back of his head, and the world went black. When Chloe and Jaden regained consciousness, they were in hospital beds. They learned that the fire had gutted the library. They had spent hours screaming for someone to go back in for Leo until they eventually collapsed from exhaustion and smoke inhalation. Leo was sitting by their beds, his face gaunt and weary. "You're awake," he breathed, a ghost of a smile appearing. The women burst into tears, throwing their arms around him. "We thought we lost you. We got you out. We have to thank them." Leo's expression turned somber. "It was Simon. I was knocked out cold. They told me Simon dragged me through the fire. He saved my life, but his leg was pinned. He's in surgery right now." The three of them waited outside the OR for hours. When the surgeon finally emerged, he looked defeated. "He's alive," the doctor said, "but we had to amputate the right leg below the hip. He's young. It's a tragedy." The news hit them like a physical blow. "Don't you need family consent for that?" Leo demanded. "How could you just take his leg?" "He was conscious when they brought him in," the doctor replied. "He insisted on it. He signed the papers himself. It was a matter of life or death." When Simon woke up, his grief was performative and overwhelming. He wailed about his lost future, and the three of them, drowned in guilt, promised him that they would never leave his side. He might have lost a leg, but he would have them forever. From then on, the girl's devotion to Simon became a full-time job. Simultaneously, Simon's hostility toward Leo became overt. Leo accepted it. He assumed that seeing him was a constant reminder of the fire and the limb Simon had given up to save him. Leo began to support Simon from the shadows, funding his lifestyle and ensuring he lacked for nothing, all to repay the debt of his life. Years passed. They graduated and started a successful tech firm. Leo, Chloe, and Jaden did the heavy lifting, while Simon was a partner in name only. They bought him luxury cars, funded exotic vacations, and gave him the best of everything. That was why Leo had been so hurt when the girls ditched their symphony date. It was a pattern that had repeated 100 times over the years. A single phone call from Simon was all it took to leave Leo standing alone. Leo waited at the concert hall until the very last minute, hoping they would show up. They didn't. He watched the performance alone, flanked by 2 empty seats. When he got home, he checked Instagram. Predictably, Simon had posted a photo. Him in a hospital gown, Chloe washing his face with a warm cloth, Jaden stirring a bowl of soup nearby. Leo was used to it. In the weeks that followed, the girls were rarely at the office. Simon's social media was a play-by-play of their care for him. Leo hadn't had a real meal with them in months. Then came Leo's birthday. Usually, the girls threw a massive party. This year, there was silence. Simon had been posting depressing, cryptic messages for a week. Photos looking down from high balconies, captions about the pointlessness of life. Naturally, the girls were on high alert suicide watch. Simon had suggested a trip to the remote wilderness of Montana to find his spirit. The scenery was breathtaking, but more importantly, it was thousands of miles away. Simon had timed it perfectly, so they wouldn't be back for Leo's birthday. Leo watched their stories every day. Simon looked radiant in the big sky country, showing no signs of depression as he was pampered by 2 beautiful women against a backdrop of mountains. Leo felt a dark, intrusive thought. Maybe it would have been better if I were the one who lost a leg. He shook the thought away, horrified. He spent his birthday alone. He set the table for 3, cooked a large meal, and bought a small cake. He lit a single candle and made a wish. I wish we could go back to the way it was. No secrets, no debts. Just us. He blew out the candle and sat in the silence of his apartment. It was 11:30 p.m. The day was almost over. Knock, knock, knock. Leo opened the door to find Chloe and Jaden, looking exhausted and windblown. We made it, Chloe cried. Did you miss us, big guy? Jaden jumped on him, and for a moment, they were like they were in the library again, him carrying them both. How are you here? Leo stammered. We chartered a flight, Chloe said, breathless. We weren't going to let you spend this day alone. What about Simon? He seemed fine, Jaden said, rolling her eyes. We told him we had to go. Depression is one thing, but we can't be held hostage forever. You're important to us, too, Leo. We were so worried you'd be mad. I could never be mad, Leo said, his heart swelling. He saved me. I owe him everything. But I missed you. He ushered them inside and spent the next hour in the kitchen whipping up a late-night feast. They gave him his gifts, a luxury watch and a custom-engraved necklace. The gifts were intimate, thoughtful, and for the first time in years, there was no competition. They drank late into the night. The girls got tipsy, using wine bottles as microphones to sing happy birthday. For one night, the shadow of Simon Vance was gone. They fell asleep on the living room rug, a tangle of limbs and blankets. The proposal, a sharp ringtone, pierced the morning quiet. Chloe groped for her phone, her eyes still half closed. Hello? Okay. Yeah, we'll be there. She tossed the phone aside. 10 more minutes. Nobody act fast. Simon's back, Jaden asked, already knowing the answer. His flight lands soon. We have to go. Leo watched them leave after they gulped down the ginger congee he'd made for their hangovers. He cleaned the apartment and headed to the office, only to find an unexpected guest in his inner sanctum. Simon Vance was sitting in Leo's chair, sipping a latte. They rarely saw each other in person these days. Simon, how was Montana? Leo asked, keeping his tone professional and warm. Simon didn't look up. He took a slow sip of his coffee. It was perfect, he said quietly, until the end. Someone ruined the finale. Leo knew he was talking about the girls leaving. Well, life is full of interrupted finales, I guess. You should try the Pacific Northwest next time, or maybe a trip to Europe. I'm going to propose to them, Simon interrupted. Them. Both of them. Today. Right here in the office. And frankly, Leo, I don't care which one says yes first. I'll take whoever is more devoted. I wonder where that leaves you. Simon's arrogance was staggering. He truly believed that years of being cared for out of pity meant they were in love with him. Leo's hands balled into fists, his knuckles turning white. Does it hurt? Simon sneered, standing up. To know that with one snap of my fingers, the women who used to worship you will leave you behind? I'm announcing it in the conference room in 30 minutes. Be there. Leo stayed in his office, staring at a report until the words blurred into gray lines. Finally, he stood up. He had to see this. The conference room was buzzing. Employees were whispering, sensing a drama they didn't quite understand. Leo slipped in and sat in the back row. Chloe and Jaden were at the front, looking confused. Simon signaled, and an assistant brought out 2 massive bouquets of lilies. He walked to the girls and knelt, an awkward gesture with his prosthetic. Chloe, Jaden, Simon projected his voice for the whole room. I've loved you both for a lifetime. These last few years have shown me I can't live without you. I want to make this official. Be my wives. The room went dead silent. Chloe and Jaden didn't look touched. They looked horrified. Simon, what are you talking about? Jaden whispered, her face flushing with embarrassment. You can't propose to 2 people. That's literally illegal. Simon smiled, looking triumphant. He pulled a document from his pocket. I'm a step ahead of you. I've officially changed my citizenship to a small island nation in the South Pacific. Their laws allow for multiple wives. We can all be together legally. The girl stared at the passport in shock. Simon, Chloe said, her voice trembling with a mix of pity and anger. You changed your nationality for this? We're your friends. We care for you because of what you did for Leo, but we are not in love with you. We'll always take care of you, Jaden added firmly. But this is a delusion. Never do this again. The crowd began to filter out, the silence replaced by mocking whispers. Simon sat on the floor, the lilies scattered around him. His face twisted into something monstrous. If that's how you want to play it, he hissed to the empty room. Then you'll get what's coming. Simon went quiet for a few weeks. He stopped calling. The girls, feeling a pang of guilt for the public rejection, eventually went to check on him. He played the victim, acting cold until they apologized enough times to restore the status quo. At the company's annual New Year's gala, held at a luxury hotel, things seemed back to normal. After the main event, the 4 of them gathered in a private suite. Simon brought out a carafe of what he called rare Himalayan tea. A peace offering, he said, pouring 4 cups. Leo took a large gulp. It tasted bitter, almost metallic. This tastes off. Chloe and Jaden agreed, setting their cups down after a single sip. Simon's face was a mask of cold indifference. It's a specific blend. Very potent. Suddenly, Simon gasped. Oh no, I just got a text from my source. He sent the wrong batch. This isn't the tea. This is a concentrated herbal aphrodisiac from the subcontinent. It's industrial strength. What? Jaden stood up. It causes extreme cardiovascular arousal in men, Simon said, his face already flushing deep red. If the heart rate isn't lowered, it can be fatal. It doesn't affect women, though. Leo felt a surge of heat. His heart began to hammer against his ribs like a trapped bird. Simon was already gasping for air, sweating profusely. Chloe and Jaden panicked. Chloe grabbed her phone to call an ambulance, while Jaden helped Simon toward the door. We have to get him to the ER. His heart. They hurried Simon toward the elevators, but as the paramedics arrived, Jaden stopped. She looked back at the suite where Leo was struggling. Chloe, Simon is with the medics now. He'll be fine, Jaden said, her voice dropping. But Leo is alone, and he's in much worse shape. He needs me. Chloe's eyes sharpened. Don't pretend you're just being a good Samaritan, Jaden. I know exactly what you're thinking, leaving with a man in that state. You're thinking the same thing, Jaden countered. We aren't letting him go through this alone. They arranged for the company security guards to accompany Simon to the hospital and turned back, racing toward Leo's room. The truth, Leo woke up the next morning as the sun hit the high-rises. He felt a strange, light airiness in his body, though his memories of the night were a blurred, feverish haze. He walked into the living area of his suite to find Chloe and Jaden looking remarkably composed, sipping coffee and scrolling through their phones. The air in the room was thick with an unsaid tension. Leo felt like a bashful groom, barely able to meet their eyes, while the 2 of them acted as if it were just another Tuesday. You're awake, Chloe said, her voice neutral but her eyes lingering on him a second too long. Leo felt a wave of heat that had nothing to do with the team. Yeah, I'm okay. What happened with Simon? He's at the hospital, Jaden said, standing up and smoothing her dress. We should go check on him. Get dressed. They arrived at the hospital at 1:00 p.m. As they approached Simon's private room, they heard voices through the slightly ajar door. Leo signaled for the girls to be quiet. You did perfectly, Simon's voice came through, sharp and clear. When they come in, tell them I took a fall because of the prosthetic last night. Tell them I broke my right arm, and because of the medication in my system, the doctors couldn't operate in time. We had to amputate. Got it. Mr. Vance, a man, presumably a doctor, replied nervously. I can't just lie about an amputation. Your arm is perfectly fine. I'm paying you more than you've made in 5 years, Simon snapped. Just like the last time, do your job and get out. The doctor hurried out of the room, nearly running into the three of them. He turned pale and bolted down the hallway. They pushed the door open. Simon saw them and his face went white. He tried to muster a weak smile. You're here. Listen, last night was a disaster. My friend sent the wrong. Stop, Chloe said. Her voice was like ice. How long have you been lying to us, Simon? We heard everything, Jaden added. The arm. The payment to the doctor. Just like the last time. What does that mean? Simon looked at their faces, no longer filled with pity, but with a terrifying, cold clarity. He realized the game was over. He started to laugh, a jagged, broken sound. You want the truth? Fine Simon spot. In the library that day, Leo was fine. He was crawling toward the door. I followed him. I hit him in the back of the head with a fire extinguisher. I dragged him out to look like the hero. Leo felt the world tilt. But I was burned too, Simon continued. And I saw how you two looked at him. I knew I'd never win. So I found a doctor who needed money. I had him take my leg. I sacrificed a limb to buy your guilt. And it worked. For years, I owned you. You cut off your own leg. To manipulate us. Leo's voice was a whisper. I'd have cut off my head if I thought it would make them love me, Simon sneered. I thought if I made them feel guilty enough, they'd have no choice but to choose me. But they never did. They only ever loved you. The room was silent. The hero, who had saved Leo's life, was a monster of his own making. Chloe and Jaden looked at Simon, this broken, bitter man who had stolen years of their lives through a calculated, self-mutilating lie. They didn't feel anger anymore. Only a profound, soul-deep disgust. We're done, Simon, Chloe said. We won't call the police. You've already destroyed yourself more than any court could. But you are dead to us. They walked out, leaving Simon Vance alone in his hospital bed, a man who had traded his body for a love he could never possess. A week later, the three of them stood at the airport. They had stepped down from the company, leaving it in the hands of a capable management firm. They needed to breathe. They had chosen a destination far from the shadows of their past, Dubai. They wanted the sun, the desert, and a world where they didn't owe anyone anything. As the plane climbed into the clouds, Leo sat between Chloe and Jaden. He took their hands, and for the first time in his life, there was no weight of debt, no hidden shadow, just the open sky and the people he had always loved. Story complete.